We're back with a candidate hoping to use his business experience as governor in Missouri.
Because with today's high cost, it's hard to get ahead. That's why I'm determined to give my workers a chance to build a better life.
Democrat Mike Hamra runs Hamra Enterprises, a family business with more than 7,000 employees at restaurants and coffee stands in 11 states. He grew up in Springfield, where the business started. Hamra got his law degree from Mizzou, and as president and CEO, he's grown Hamra Enterprises from 26 restaurants to close to 200. Hamra is a political newcomer, having never held elected office before. And earlier on in his campaign, he batted back criticism of his out-of-state voting record. That's where we begin today. You've campaigned as an outsider in this race, and critics have said that's an understatement, pointing to voting records in Illinois showing you casting ballots in Chicago as recently as 2020. How can you assure voters in Missouri that you're invested in Missouri?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Springfield, Missouri. I live here today with my family in Springfield. But the truth of the matter is, I wouldn't be in this race unless I qualified to run for governor in the state of Missouri. And I care deeply about the state of Missouri. I've grown a family-owned business from 26 locations to almost 200. We employ over 2,000 people here in the state of Missouri. And I built many of the 50 locations that we have here in the state, building relationships with people in various communities throughout the state, even beyond the 50 communities that we're in here today. So I care deeply about the state. I think the state has a great future and a bright future, and that's why I'm running for governor.
Live here in Missouri and,
yes.
and have for the last decade, I think that's the rule?
Yes, that's right.
All right. You've never held elected office before, but you arguably want the biggest office that Missouri has to offer. Why should voters pick you?
Yeah, so like I said, I think the state has a great opportunity and a bright future. But we're also, encumbered with a lot of challenges. People are still challenged with trying to make ends meet in the state, and that's frustrating as a Missourian to see and watch that. For the last 22 years, I've laid out a vision and grown a business working with people that I might not always agree with to build a great company. And being able to bring people together. And I know that's what Missouri needs right now. They need somebody who's willing to go to work with people, irrespective of their political affiliation, to try to move things forward and solve problems. And I'm someone who's relentless around solving problems. I won't stop until we solve problems and until we make progress in our business, and I'll do the exact same thing for people in the state of Missouri.
What's the biggest issue in Missouri right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, the biggest issue that we have right now is the extreme abortion ban that we have in place. And I'm confident that we're going to have that ballot initiative in November. I'm confident that we're going to restore that right for women in the state of Missouri. But we're going to need to have a Democratic governor to ensure we keep that right in place.
You may still be up against a Republican-run House and Senate. How do you make that work, and how do you try to keep those rights in place? Obviously, if this abortion amendment passes, it's enshrined in the Constitution. That hasn't stopped politicians in Kansas, let's say, from trying to put further restrictions on abortions.
That's right. We'll work. Like I said, I'm going to work with anybody, and I'll work hard to make sure we keep those rights in place, and I'll work with our legislative body to do that. And in places where they've decided they're going to just stonewall us in that effort, then we'll work to replace them. We'll work to find other candidates that will be elected to the House or the Senate that are going to work with an executive branch to try to bring change and bring progress to the state of Missouri. It's not just good for women's rights in the state of Missouri to restore that, but it's also good for our future. I talk to parents and grandparents every day that tell me their kids aren't willing to move back to the state of Missouri, and they're concerned about their grandchildren leaving the state of Missouri because of this extreme abortion ban. So it's impacting our economy, it's impacting our future and our ability to keep people here in the state of Missouri right now.
You've discussed the need to stop the partisan food fighting, I think you said.
Yes.
How do you do that when historically there's just been gridlock constantly in Jeff City? As governor, how would you try to break that up?
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm running is because for the last 22 years, I have brought people together to solve problems, to confront challenges, and I'm relentless about it. And I know that I'll do that same thing as governor. And if there is stonewalling, you know, the legislators decide, or there's people in the legislative body that decide to stonewall efforts to try to make progress in the state, then we'll bring those initiatives to the voters. We'll bring it back to the voters and let them make those decisions.
There's an issue close to home in Kansas City, and that has to do with the state control of the police department here.
Yes.
We know there's a fight in St. Louis to maybe bring back state control. Do you support state control of local police departments?
Well, first off, let me just say this. You know, the voters in these communities throughout the Missouri, they elect the mayors to make those decisions. They put elected officials in place to make decisions about what safety is going to look like, how they're going to manage law enforcement agencies in those various communities. You know, I think it's disruptive for the state to be involved in Kansas City's decision making around law enforcement and how they're going to manage and govern their police force. We need to ensure that that is put back into the state, you know, back into Kansas City, back into the hands of the mayor and the people that have been elected as officials in Kansas City. They know their community best. The state does not know as much about what's happening in the city of Kansas City as the people that are elected in that city.
Would you support or lead an effort to bring local control back to Kansas City?
Yes.
Okay. You know, we talk about gun violence all the time here in Kansas City, and we see that in St. Louis as well.
Yes.
It's a major problem here, a public health crisis, according to some health experts. What do you do to try and curb those numbers?
Well, I think, you know, all majority of Missourians, including gun owners like myself, support stronger background checks, as well as red flag laws here in the state of Missouri. It's not just good for the safety of people walking out on the streets, but it's also supporting our law enforcement agencies so they're protected when they're walking into situations that they're not aware of. There may be a violent, you know, person in there that has the right to own a gun. And that's something red flag laws would help our law enforcement agencies out with as well.
How do you get that through the General Assembly, which is
Yeah.
typically ultra-conservative in some such, at least Republican-led, you could say?
Yeah, I'll work with anybody in the General Assembly to like move that forward. And like I said, the majority of people in the state of Missouri, including gun owners, want to see stronger background checks. They want to see the even conservative red flag laws put into the state of Missouri. We have to convince them to do that. And if they're unwilling to do that, then we will, again, bring that back to the voters in the state of Missouri through a ballot initiative.